Hello guys, welcome back to the Quick Start AngularJS course. So, how AngularJS applications bootstrap? There are two different ways of bootstrapping. One using ng app directive, which automatically triggers the bootstrapping process. And in advanced cases, you can use manual way of bootstrapping. Let's see how automatic bootstrapping of AngularJS applications work in more details. Let's continue with the HTML file I have created in the last lecture. You can see I have added some additional markup in this file. This initial HTML file is called the template. We have ng app directive here which initializes our AngularJS application. I have also added a new directive called ng-init here in the body tag. Now let's understand this in more details. So when the DOM is loaded, AngularJS script file looks for the ng app directive. AngularJS creates the injector object which is responsible for creating and injecting dependencies. I'll explain dependency injection in more details later. The injector will then create the root scope object where we can keep our model values. Model is responsible for containing data of our application. So you can think of a root scope as a global variable in our application, and the data variables defined on this scope is accessible anywhere in the application. Injector also creates the compile service object which is responsible for compiling the static HTML template. Angular then compile the DOM using compile service starting the ng app root element, processing all the directives and bindings in the HTML. So, as in our HTML, we have one more directive coming along the way of compile service, ng-init directive. When ng-init directive's code will get executed, it adds the property named number of books in the root scope object created by ng app directive. ng-init directive is responsible for creating values in the current scope. In this case, as the current scope is the root scope, the number of books property will be created inside the root scope object and it will have the value of 10. Okay, so further compilation finds the binding in the HTML written as double curlies. As explained previously, the expression inside these double curlies will be evaluated in the current scope. In our case, current scope is the root scope object and it has property named number of books created by ng-init directive. So this expression will be evaluated in the current scope and the value of number of books property will be used, which is 10. The final output of this compilation process will be dynamic DOM created by the Angular. They call it the view. Let's run the HTML and see the output in the browser. You can see the expression number of books plus million is replaced by 10 million. This is the magic done by Angular after compilation of static template to dynamic view. Okay, before concluding this lecture, I would like to cover one more directive which creates properties in the current scope. You can use this directive to create new models. Can you guess the name? It's ng-model. Let's add a text input element in our HTML, say with the label of number of books. Also, let's give it a property with the name of ng-model equals to number of books. Okay, can you see the similarity here? I have given it the same name as we have used in ng-init directive. So what this ng-model directive does? ng-model directive also creates the properties in the current scope. So the current scope is the root scope. So it will create the property with the name of number of books on the root scope if it doesn't exist. Now we already have the property with the name of number of books in the root scope. So it will use the same property. Let's go and refresh the application in the browser. Here it is. Our text input has the value of 10. Can you guess from where it's coming? Right, it's coming from the root scope and ng-init directive has initialized it with a value of 10. We can see the same value here in the sentence. We have collection of 10 million books. So the property number of books created by ng-init directive is used by this input element as well as the double curlies having this expression here. Now here comes the real magic of Angular, the dynamic updates of model values. Let's try and input something into the number of books text input field. Great! As I'm changing the value of input field, the value is also getting updated in my sentence here. So you can see when the model or data changes, all those model values are getting updated in the view. And all of this is done automatically. I'm not doing any manual coding like we do in JavaScript or jQuery. Okay guys, in this lecture we have covered some of the cool directives along with AngularJS bootstrapping process. Thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next video.